Now on Brooklyn News Live, the breaking news we are just getting in right now about the Minnesota lawmaker and her husband. The two were killed a few months ago. The ruling just made by a judge and a jury in the Senate. The suspect just got coming up here in just a few moments. Plus, we've got the latest on the war in Iran as the president pays respect to even more fallen soldiers as this war rages on, as continued consecutive nights of striking continues. And we've got the latest on the psychoparalysis outbreak happening because of lettuce, what the FDA is now saying, the update that we have for you, all coming up right now on Brooklyn News Live.
It's time for all the news you need and more. Brooklyn News Live starts right now.
Hi everybody, welcome into Brooklyn News Live. It's good to be with you. We got a lot coming up, a lot going on today, tons of news to get to. I'm Jackson Mitchell. It is good to be with you. It is Thursday, July 23rd, 2026, meaning it's 1:01 here in Brooklyn, 2:01 on the East Coast, and 11:01 a.m. on the West Coast. We've got a lot to get to. We want to start with some breaking news we are getting in right now that is coming out of Minnesota. So we are just learning that the lawmaker and her husband that were killed a few months ago in Minneapolis, the judge has now sentenced the suspect here. I want to read this to you straight from the source. So again, this is a Minnesota man. He pled guilty to killing a top Democratic lawmaker and her husband. Vance Bolter is the suspect's name here, pled guilty in June. Now, almost a year later, the Minnesota area attacks in which he stalked and killed former House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark, and critically wounded State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette. Now, Bolter was also given an additional 480 months or 4 years in prison. So 2 consecutive life sentences is what the judge ordered here, something quite unique for a case like this. Now, Bolter, the suspect here, pled guilty to 6 counts. So federal prosecutors here would not seek the death penalty. Instead, he agreed to serve 2 consecutive life sentences plus 40 years. Now, this is the same sentence handed down on Thursday. So this is just coming into us. Again, the breaking news, we are just getting in about all of this. Please hold with us because we're getting into more information about this all as well. Give me one moment. Already apologies about that. Sorry, had to check on something behind the scenes here. So we know that the judge said this here. This is Bolter, rather, what the suspect said in court. Quote, "To every person I've caused loss, pain, heartache, confusion, sadness, shame, or loneliness, I am truly sorry." Now, that is a direct quote there from Bolter, what he said in court earlier in all of this. So again, just some breaking news that we are just getting in that we wanted to bring you. Again, it's all coming into us within the last few moments. Again, Bolter, the suspect here, accused of killing Melissa Hortman and her husband, as well as injuring another state senator here, John Hoffman, and his wife Yvette, pleading guilty, now sentenced to 2 life sentences plus 40 years. Alrighty, we are going to keep you updated on that, and we'll bring you updates as we get it. I want to turn to this. So President Trump traveled to Dover Air Force Base in Delaware yesterday to attend the dignified transfer of 4 U.S. service members killed in the Iran war. Standing solemnly, alongside Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and saluting as 4 flag-draped transfer cases were transported off a military aircraft and returned to their families. Now, speaking to reporters on his way to Dover, reporters on his, he said, quote, "One of the hardest things to do as a president," and said his message to the grieving families was simple, quote, "We love you, we love your child." Again, the president saying that this is one of the hardest things to do as a president. Now, the 3 most recently identified here that you see in the video on your screen were First Lieutenant Tyler James Feehan, 25, and then Sergeant Angel Rapensword, Saad rather, 28, and then you have Isabella Gonzalez, 19. Now all were killed in an Iranian missile strike in an air base rather, in Jordan last Friday. So it was the third dignified transfer Trump has attended since he launched the war in February. Hours after the ceremony, Trump spoke at a rally in Georgia, calling the transfer, quote, very tough to watch, and telling the crowd, quote, all of them said very strongly that we can't let Iran have a nuclear weapon, so we're going to honor them. Now, since the war began on February 28th, 18 U.S. service members have now been killed, and the war has cost American taxpayers at least $37.5 billion. Now, also yesterday, as Trump was at Dover paying his respects, the House was on Capitol Hill. They were making moves there, taking action to fund the war's next chapter. Here, the Republicans passed a massive $1.1 trillion, you heard that right, Pentagon funding package yesterday, known as the National Defense Authorization Act, or NDAA, and one of the final legislative acts before Congress leaves Washington for more than a month-long recess. The bill passed on a largely party-line vote of 216 to 212, with just 6 Democrats joining Republicans in support. Now, the package includes a budget blueprint to unlock new dollars to fund the ongoing Iran war. Now, this bill also contains provisions to implement part of President Trump's election overhaul bill. Republicans called it, quote, a generational investment in American national defense, unquote, that, quote, builds the fighting force of the future by prioritizing innovation and lethality, rather. Democrats pushed back hard here. They argued that this bill would essentially hand Trump a blank check for a war that has already cost taxpayers here at least $37.5 billion, is claimed to have 18 American lives and shows no signs of ending. The bill now heads to the Senate, where at this point in time, the path forward here is unclear, to put it in kind of plain English here. Now, with the chamber typically advancing the NDAA with broad bipartisan support, a threshold version is far from reaching.
Republicans will return to their districts armed with a proven track record of success and in these new legislative victories. Democrats, on the other hand, have to go home. They have to answer for quite a bit. They have to answer for why they voted against funding our troops, against funding the government, against common sense policies like voter ID and proof of citizenship, and against a popular ban on members of Congress purchasing individual stocks.
Opposition to this America Last Republican budget that will provide billions of additional dollars to Operation Epic Fury in the Middle East, which has been a complete and total disaster for the American people. Donald Trump's reckless and costly war of choice in Iran has skyrocketed gas prices on everyday Americans who are already suffering from the failed Republican economy and drowning in its poor management. Now, Donald Trump has made several promises to the American people upon his return to the White House, all of which, it appears to me, he's failed to keep. Donald Trump promised to lower the high cost of living on day one, but costs in America haven't gone down, costs have gone up.
So Mike Johnson is who you heard first here. He is the Speaker in the House of Representatives speaking out there. And then you heard Hakeem Jeffries, who is the Minority Leader, speaking out. Now, in just 2 days ago, in the first public accounting of the war in more than 2 months, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth faced a fiery session on Capitol Hill, testifying before the Senate Appropriations Committee alongside Joint Chiefs Chairman General Dan Kane to request an additional $87 billion in emergency funding for the Iran war. Now, Hegseth specifically told senators that the war has already cost $37.5 billion so far, though independent experts say the true figure is likely much higher, and called the request, quote, an urgent, necessary injection of resources to address the immediate needs of our department. Now, the hearing, as expected here, quickly turned contentious when Republican Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana told reporters afterwards that Congress needs, quote, some straighter answers from the Pentagon, and saying that this administration has to explain to the American people, quote, why we went in and how we're going to get out. Now, Democratic Senator Gary Peters of Michigan was far more blunt, calling the war, quote, an utter and complete failure, and telling Hegseth this directly, quote, you don't have a long-term plan to actually win this war. Win the war. Hegseth fired back, accusing Peters of having, quote, Trump derangement syndrome and playing partisan politics. This is one of the sharpest exchanges of the hearings when Democratic Senator John Ossoff of Georgia used Hegseth's own past statements against him. Reading back comments the defense secretary made in March and April declaring Iran's military had been, quote, destroyed, then pointing out that Iran has since killed 18 American troops and is still firing missiles across the region. The hearing laid bare a growing bipartisan frustration with the war, and with Congress now heading into a more than 1 month long recess, the next public accounting may not come until September.
Hegseth,
there's no reason to be rude.
You are asking for unlimited money for bombs when people can't feed their families. And I don't know how this administration intends to defend those decisions to the American people.
Not unlimited bombs, Senator. I'm asking for the right bombs at the right time to ensure we can deter our adversaries into the future. And that's why this is a generational investment. And it was the previous administration that didn't fund this department.
The reason why they are so upset with you and this administration is because the words you have used in the past don't add up. About Iran specifically, you said that we had obliterated, quote unquote, Iran's ability to create nuclear weapons. The president made the same claim. Yet 8 months later, in February of 2026, the president launched an act of war claiming Iran was within 2 weeks of having a weapon. So when you say two very different things, the American people don't know who to believe or what to believe.
Part of the reason President Trump had to have the courage to do what he did after Midnight Hammer is that they didn't give up their ambitions even though their nuclear sites had been obliterated. So this is a regime hell-bent on nuclear ambitions, and President Trump's been willing to go after them.
We need straight answers. Do we have the ability to destroy whatever is underneath Pickaxe Mountain?
Senator, a lot of our capabilities are classified, but if anybody in the world can reach anything on God's green earth, it's the United States military.
Now, as of this afternoon, the war with Iran is now in, well, its 12th consecutive night of U.S. strikes, with Brent crude surging nearly 5% yesterday to top $95 a barrel for the first time in 6 weeks, and U.S. crude closing at $86.83 a barrel. That pain is already being felt at the pump. Now, the national average for gallon regular gas now stands at $4.06. That's up 17 cents in just 1 week, and back above the $4 threshold for the first time since mid-June, when prices had briefly fallen after the June 17th Memorandum of Understanding. Now, for context here, gas was $2.98 a gallon the day before the war started back in February. Now, analysts warn prices could climb even further if the Strait of Hormuz remains contested and diplomacy continues to stall, with Congress now heading into recess for more than a month and no new peace talks on the calendar. At this point in time, like, Northeast Arkansas should expect the war and its cost at the pump to remain a fact of daily life well into the fall. So again, people locally here, that could affect you for a long period of time going forward, especially when, again, the 12th consecutive night of strikes, and there's no signs of when this is going to end. Originally, there was a quick sign. Stocks had went up when there was a sign that maybe this war was going to end. Brent crude oil went down when there was a sign that maybe this war was going to end, when the president and Iran signed a memorandum of understanding. Now we're back to essentially square one, though the president is continuing to claim that, well, Iran wants to make a deal and that they're, quote, begging to make a deal. We're going to stick on this story. As you know, we have brought you updates every day we've been live on this war, and we'll bring you more when we get them. We do now want to turn to a developing story we are following out of Louisiana. Tropical storm Bertha made landfall in St. Bernard Parish, Louisiana yesterday afternoon, becoming the first named storm to make landfall during the 2026 Atlantic hurricane season. You see there the waves very, very harsh. Not safe waters to swim in, that is for sure. It's now crawling westward across southern Louisiana this morning with sustained winds of 60 miles per hour. The National Hurricane Center says Bertha is moving with, quote, little acceleration, tracking over the New Orleans area overnight and now heading straight for the Texas Gulf Coast, where it's expected to deliver gusty winds and heavy rain before dissipating by the end of the week. Tropical storm force winds are reaching more than 100 miles from the center, with beaches closed from Florida to Mississippi, and a tropical storm warning now extended westward all the way to Cameron, Louisiana. Now, Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry said the state is prepared and has resources in place, and that storm has already left its mark on the Florida Panhandle, damaging beaches and turtle nests in the Destin area, and even sending a Waffle House sign crashing into a Panama City parking lot. Wow, just scary to hear that. Here's Governor Landry yesterday.
Our state has been preparing for Tropical Storm Bertha, and we have taken the storm seriously from the beginning. And that's what we all should do every time a storm system threatens our state. The latest forecast is extremely encouraging. I want to thank everyone out there who prayed real hard that this storm would not affect Louisiana as other storms have in the past. After my comments, I'm going to turn it over to our climatologist, Jay Grimes, who will kind of go over the latest on Bertha. And so, again, the good news is that the storm is likely not to produce the type of rainfall or wind event that it could have. But I want to remind everyone of something important, that forecasts can change, and even a weaker storm can produce dangerous rainfall, localized flooding, and hazardous travel conditions. You know, we saw that just a month ago when Tropical Storm Arthur visited us and devastated Avals Parish. We had all thought that we were out of the woods, and then Avals Parish received 30 inches of rain in a 5-hour period, I think it was, which was a record for the state. And that parish is still reeling from the effects.
Now, for us here in Brooklyn, Bertha is not going to make a direct threat to our area. However, meteorologists are continuing to watch closely here as the storm's deep tropical moisture could fuel additional heavy rain and isolated flooding across the Mid-South later this week, an area that, well, is still recovering from flash flooding earlier this month. And we already saw what kind of moisture that kind of moisture weather can do right here in Craighead County. So if Bertha remains pushed north, another round of heavy rain cannot be ruled out. Keep it here on Brooklyn News Live for updates as the storm continues to move west. And as always, if a flash flood warning is issued for our area, do not drive through flooded roads. And I cannot say this loud enough. Turn around. Do not drown. When we come back, the U.S. signed a nuclear deal with Saudi Arabia. We have everything you need to know. Plus, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt during a press briefing today was pressed really hard on that. Plus, a Spider-Man out of Jonesboro saving a man at a crosswalk at a busy intersection. When we come back, you're watching Brooklyn News Live. Stick with us.
In a world that never stops, Brooklyn News is always there, bringing you news from Brooklyn.
Now to some news right now in Brooklyn. An increase to your trash pickup could be coming soon.
The nation.
We're going to start first right now with the breaking news and the information that we know.
And the world.
In the meantime, though, we do want to get to the latest on the war in Iran.
Follow Jackson Mitchell and Brooklyn News.
Welcome back. In a move that is already sending shockwaves through the Middle East, the Trump administration signed a landmark civilian nuclear cooperation agreement with Saudi Arabia yesterday, known as a quote 123 agreement, with Energy Secretary Chris Wright and Saudi Energy Minister Prince. They are putting pen to paper on a deal that the Energy Department is calling, quote, historic. Now, the agreement lays the legal foundation for a decades-long, multi-billion-dollar partnership that would allow American companies, including nuclear giant Westinghouse, to build and operate commercial nuclear power plants on Saudi soil, giving the kingdom a pathway to enriching nuclear fuel. Now, why this is so striking? It's all about the timing. The U.S. is simultaneously bombing Iran to force Tehran to renounce its own nuclear ambitions, while handing its Gulf rival Saudi Arabia a pathway to nuclear technology. So it's kind of a double standard here, essentially, is what critics are pointing to. Quote, this agreement will set off a nuclear race in the region, further disincentivizing Iran from limiting its own program. Democratic Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut said that in his criticism about all of this. Now, the deal does not authorize Saudi Arabia to build nuclear weapons, but the kingdom's crown prince has previously stated publicly that if Iran obtains a nuclear weapon, Saudi Arabia will pursue one too. Now, Congress has 90 days to review all of this and potentially act on the agreement before it takes effect today. I should say before it takes effect, excuse me.
With regards to the Saudi nuclear deal, why was that condition not mentioned yesterday when the Energy Secretary announced it?
Well, look, the president is always the final deal maker, as you know, and this is something that he has mentioned on numerous occasions going back. I can provide you with those statements, and he has said if they don't join the Abraham Accords, the deal is off. So we'll continue to have those conversations with our Saudi counterparts moving forward.
So the deal is dead if Saudi Arabia doesn't join. And have you any
No.
indication that Saudi Arabia is even considering this?
Again, the president has spoken directly with the Saudis about this in numerous conversations in the past, and the administration will continue to engage in those conversations.
Just playing devil's advocate, why does Saudi Arabia get a civilian nuclear deal, but Iran doesn't get a civilian nuclear deal?
Well, again, this agreement is still being worked out. Well, it will eventually, hopefully, be finalized with the condition that the president spoke about this morning. But this agreement in particular, as it's been discussed thus far, does give priority access for American companies in the Saudi nuclear energy program, which will ultimately benefit American industry workers and supply chains. So the deal that has been discussed thus far and will continue to be discussed absolutely puts America first, and that's obviously very important to this president.
And kind of here's the bottom line and why this is so important. Why does this matter so much to you? Because as a nation already at war over the nuclear question in Iran, the United States essentially just handed the country a next door pathway to the same technology it is spending billions of dollars in American lives to prevent Iran from having. Now, critics say the timing could not be worse, with Iran already accusing the U.S. of double standards and using the deal as fresh ammunition to justify its own nuclear ambitions at the very moment peace talks are hanging by a thread. Those peace talks hanging by a thread. Supporters argue the deal actually strengthens non-proliferation by keeping Saudi Arabia inside the U.S. nuclear umbrella, rather than pushing them toward China or Russia. Now, both of whom have been actively courting Riyadh for their own nuclear programs. Whatever side you are on, one thing is clear: the Middle East nuclear picture just got a whole lot more complicated here. And Congress has, again, 90 days to decide on what the future of all of this could look like. Alrighty, now to another developing story. The cyclospora, you might have been heard it as cycloparalysis, that parasite outbreak linked to lettuce, is now getting bigger, not smaller. As of this afternoon, more than 1,400 people across 41 states have now been confirmed sick, with 308 hospitalizations. And the CDC now expecting that number to continue climbing through August. The outbreak exploded primarily out of Michigan, where more than 7,000 cases have been reported alone and have been traced to shredded iceberg lettuce served at Taco Bell locations in Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, West Virginia, and Kentucky. Taylor Farms de Mexico, the supplier at the center of the investigation, voluntarily recalled all iceberg lettuce sourced from central Mexico back on July 17th, and it's announced it will not source iceberg lettuce from central Mexico for the remainder of the growing season.
Okay, great. We'll take one more right up here.
Elizabeth Schulze with ABC News. This is just for Secretary Kennedy. As you know, thousands of Americans have gotten sick from the cyclosporiasis outbreak. Would like to get your take on, does the federal government have this outbreak under control right now?
We do have the outbreak under control. We have done extensive forensics, epidemiological forensics, and we've identified the source of the outbreak. We and the companies that have been involved have implemented a recall.
Any response to some of the criticism that the cuts to the federal agencies under your leadership has slowed the response to the outbreak?
Those criticisms are invalid. We've had no cuts in our surveillance program. We did cuts in the Food Net program, but they were for redundant surveillance, and all the states will tell you that. We're still doing forensics. We're still doing surveillance in all the states.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
So here's the big issue here. Here's the problem that a lot of people are focusing on, because the FDA initially said a sample tested positive for the parasite, then reversed the course days later and called it a false positive. Now, this left investigators, essentially still living investigators, without a confirmed source to all of this. And as of this morning, the FDA has since announced it is now investigating a brand new cluster of 72 additional cases tied to an entirely unknown source, meaning the outbreak may even be broader than officials first thought. HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy has said this is all under control. You just heard him say that there. So it is something that we're going to follow. So again, it's best at this point in time to, if you have Taylor Farms iceberg lettuce at your house, if they have a best date of July 18th through August 3rd, officials say essentially throw it out, return it to the store immediately. And if you have ongoing diarrhea, fatigue, or nausea for more than a few days, you need to see a doctor. The illness is treatable with antibiotics, but it will not go away on its own. So it's a story that we are following right now and are going to bring you updates on as soon as there are updates on this story. We do want to turn right now to some breaking news that we are just getting in. You are taking a live look right now in Washington, D.C., where the president is making an announcement on the Ratepayer Protection Pledge. We want to note that this was set to start about 1:30, started a few minutes early. We are monitoring it and we'll bring you updates if we get any. Again, that is happening right now. We plan to bring you updates if there are any major updates on any of them. Alrighty, we do want to turn to another story that we are following right now. It is yet another one of these big stories, a big developing story. There are updates consistently coming out of it, and we want to make sure that we are keeping all of you updated. So it's now been more than 2 weeks since 18-year-old Nolan Wells, a wide receiver at Southwest Mississippi Community College, disappeared during a 4th of July boat trip to Horn Island. That's a remote barrier island about 10 miles off of the Mississippi coast. His body was found face down in the water on July 6th by a National Park Service agent. His friends returned to the mainland without him. His family laid him to rest this past Monday without knowing how or why he died, a question that I couldn't put myself in the place of if I had a child, not knowing how my child died, how this all happened. Now, the case has drawn national attention and racial tension, in part because Wells appeared to be the only black man in the group of friends he was with that day, and in part because of Mississippi's fraught racial history. Jackson County investigators initially said they suspected drowning, but Wells' mother, Christine Wansley, pushed back at that at a press conference, saying, quote, "The accidental drowning thing, it made both me and his father uncomfortable. Why are we so quick to rush to this?" Unquote. The family has retained civil rights attorney Ben Crump, whose team is conducting an independent autopsy, and that autopsy has since been released. I want to take a listen here to Ben Crump, prominent civil rights attorney, breaking down what was exactly inside this independent autopsy that was conducted. Take a listen.
Preliminary findings, and this is significant. Focal area of red discoloration in the soft tissue of the back of the head, the occipital region. He said the etiology is unknown at this time. He said the body was received after the initial autopsy. He said the body had marked decompensation. He said corona incision of the scalp, brain removal, Y-shaped incision of the anterior torso, and he talked about the organs being removed, as is common, accompanied in the body cavity. And that when you have an autopsy, the organs are removed from the body and they are dissected and examined, and then they are put back in a bag within inside the body. So when they're buried, their remains will all be with them. But in this occasion, if there's going to be a second autopsy, then the organs are put in the body cavity so the second pathologist could be able to examine the organs as well. Very significant for Dr. Mitchell was that the anterior inner neck structures were absent, not received with the body, and we'll explain that.
Now, as this case continues to develop, one thing is clear. Nolan Wells' family is not going to go away quietly. His mother told reporters this week that they will not rest until she has answers. And with Ben Crump now leading an independent investigation, a grand jury, we believe, is now waiting in the wings here, and national attention fixed on a small in Mississippi island, the pressure on investigators to provide transparency is only growing. So again, we are going to continue, as we've done, to follow this story if there are updates, and I know that there have been small updates. When there are larger updates, we're planning to bring them to you. Just like this independent autopsy, we're planning to bring this stuff to you. So as there are updates in this case, you can trust Brookland News Live. We're going to bring it to you. We're going to bring updates to it when there are press conferences. We're going to bring those to you if they happen during our hour. We are going to seek in another quick break when we come back. So Arkansas is now suing drug makers, over their lack of letting people into drug programs. We're going to talk about it because it's really interesting. Plus, the autopsy of the Brookland canine that was found dead has since been released. What we are now learning about all of that when we come back. You're watching Brookland News Live.
In a world that never stops, Brookland News is always there, bringing you news from Brooklyn.
Now to some news right now in Brooklyn. An increase to your trash pickup could be coming soon.
The nation.
We're going to start first right now with the breaking news and the information that we know.
And the world.
In the meantime, though, we do want to get to the latest on the war in Iran.
Follow Jackson Mitchell and Brooklyn News.
And right now in Arkansas, the Arkansas Attorney General Tim Griffin filed a sweeping lawsuit yesterday against 22 defendants, including 13 major drug manufacturers such as Pfizer, Bristol Myers Squibb, accusing them of illegally blocking hospitals and community health clinics from assessing deeply discounted prescription drugs through the federal 340B drug pricing program. Now, that program was designed to help safety new hospitals, in health centers, including those serving low income and rural patients, get prescription drugs at steep and sweeping discounts, which they then use to stretch their budgets and expand care. But Griffin says drug manufacturers began placing restrictions on how providers could obtain those discounts, and the cost of the program increased, effectively cutting off the very hospitals that need them the most. Arkansas was the first state in the nation to fight back, passing Act 1103 in 2021, which requires any drug maker that participates in Medicaid to sell discounted drugs to contract pharmacies. The pharmaceutical industry challenged that law all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court and lost. Now, Griffin filed this all yesterday in Polk County, the circuit court there, alleging the drug companies engaged in deceptive business practices and are still violating that state law, even after losing in court. Standing alongside Griffin at the press conference were representatives from UAMS, Baptist Health, Community Health Centers of Arkansas, and the MENA Regional Health System. Take a listen to what he had to say yesterday at that press conference.
Do that because the Medicaid and the Medicare market is a big one, and so they can opt into this. And if they do that, then what they have to do, the positive for a drug company, this 340B program, is that they can have access to this market. The reason that a hospital or a provider wants to be in it is because they then get drugs at a discount price. Now, the discount can be much more if it's Medicare than Medicaid as a general matter, but the point is a discount price. Now, if it's, I'm gonna risk going here in the details. If it's Medicaid, they just get a discount. If it's Medicare, they will not just get a discount, they'll get reimbursed at the full rate by a private insurance company or by Medicare. So the way that would work is, let's say a drug is normally $100, I'm making these numbers up, $100, and the drug company sells it at a discounted rate, let's say $50. Then the entity, the provider, the hospital, for example, can get reimbursed at the $100. And they can use that delta to help continue to operate their organization that is helping provide access to many individuals who may live in a rural area, they may not otherwise have access.
And here's why this all kind of matters directly to you. So if you're, a user, or someone that gets care at a community health clinic or rural hospital or any safety net provider here in Arkansas, Northeast Arkansas specifically, this case affects you. The 340B program is one of the main reasons those facilities can afford to keep their doors open and offer affordable care to low-income patients. Now, Griffin is asking the court to force the drug companies to comply with Arkansas law, pay back what they owe, and stop the deceptive practices once and for all. Now, we're going to continue to follow this case. We'll bring you updates right here on Brookland News Live when we get them. It's for sure a case that we are keeping our eyes on here at Brookland News Live because we know it affects so many of residents throughout Arkansas. Alrighty, right now to this developing story out of Brookland. We are following the mystery surrounding the sudden death of Brookland Police Canine Officer Bolo. we now have learned that this has all kind of been solved here because the autopsy has been revealed. Greene County Sheriff Brad Snyder announced Monday that the necropsy conducted by the Arkansas Veterinary Diagnostic Laboratory in Little Rock determined that Bolo died from gastric dilation valvosus. Now that's commonly known as GDV or bloat. The condition occurs when a dog's stomach fills with gas and twists on itself, cutting off the entrance and exit points, and can develop without warning and progress fatally within hours. Now Bolo had no visible injuries and there was no other evidence of foul play. Sheriff Snyder said, quote, "At this time, our investigation has been closed as the death was determined to be of natural causes. Our thoughts and prayers are with the Brookland Police Department and the citizens of Brookland during this difficult time." Now, Dr. Claire Kelly, an associate professor at the Arkansas State University School of Veterinary Medicine, noted that GDV is a known risk for large working dogs, including German Shepherds, and can be triggered when dogs eat or drink too fast or engage in heavy exercise shortly after a large meal. Now, Bolo had already been unable to complete his shift the night before his death after his handler, Officer Cody Ladner's patrol car broke down on Highway 49. Ladner's last contact with Bolo was at 2 a.m., and the canine was later found dead in his kennel just hours later. Chief John Moore of the Brookland Police Department said, quote, "Cody and Bolo had a very special bond and made an awesome team. He was loved by everybody in his department," unquote. It's so sad to hear. And again, like, people always say, you know, you don't grow don't grow an attachment to an animal because they do pass in just a matter of years while you are still living, likely. And it's just hard not to do. I have you hear my dogs probably in the background every once in a while in the broadcast, and I have grown connections with them, and those are my those are my babies. So, you know, so sad. Our prayers, our thoughts with that family, because it is like losing a human life. Alrighty, now to this. New signs outside of the mall in Turtle Creek. Take a look at this, you guys. I'll just let you see. Showing signs of redevelopment. This comes 6 years after an EF3 tornado tore through Jonesboro and destroyed much of the mall at Turtle Creek. So finally, some new signs here. Literally, you see there that redevelopment is on the way. Hag Brown Commercial Real Estate has put up green signs along East Highland Drive, advertising opportunities at a new development called the Shops at Turtle Creek. Now, the tornado struck back on March 28th in 2020, leaving most of the mall demolished in an empty lot alongside the remaining Target, JCPenney, and Dillard's. A local investor purchased the property last September. Stores that were destroyed, including Barnes & Noble, Ulta, and Bath & Body Works, have since relocated to other areas of Jonesboro, and Best Buy is the latest to announce a return, with a new location on South Caraway Road set to open next week. Jonesboro residents say they are ready. Now, one shopper told KAIT, quote, "We would just love to have them all. To be able to walk back through and play in the play area was wonderful for them, and we just missed them all we had." Now, Hag Brown has not released a timeline for when this could all open, but now saying essentially here that there are spots available that you can buy. Okay, so a lot of happy news. A lot of people are really happy. I specifically remember it was right after the COVID-19 pandemic had just been ramping up. It was still ramping up at the time. So a lot of people were not in the mall at the moment of the tornado. And it ultimately left to there being no deaths because nobody was in the mall, because the fact that there was a coronavirus pandemic that was ongoing. So thankful, thankful that the tornado happened at that moment, not thankful that the tornado happened, but it happened at the right time in the right place. Not the right place, you know what I mean? The right time. At the right time when there was not a lot of people that were outside. It led to no deaths. I know there were people were injured, but there were no deaths, and that is so we are so blessed to have experienced an EF3 tornado and had no deaths. So happy to see these developments happening. Again, the Shops at Turtle Creek, no date on when it's going to all open, but again, spots are open to buy. Okay. We're going to sneak in another quick break. When we come back, we're going to take a live to where Trump is making an announcement at the EPA. He's still speaking right now. We're going to, again, we'll take you there live. I'll show you it right now. This is happening now. There you go. You can see the president Speaking there, we'll take you there here in just a few moments, and then we're also going to talk about the New York City mayor saying that, well, there's no way he can charge the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu after the ICC, essentially the International Court, has issued a warrant. We'll talk about that when we come back. You are watching Brookland News Live. Alrighty, welcome back. We're following an event happening right now at the EPA. President Trump traveling this afternoon to the EPA headquarters and unveiling what he is calling the, quote, Ratepayer Protection Pledge. It's a new initiative aimed at protecting American utility customers from rising energy costs. The announcement comes directly amid skyrocketing gas and energy prices fueled by the Iran war and continuing Trump's aggressive deregulatory push at the EPA, which has already rolled back the Obama-era greenhouse gas endangerment, finding, eliminating the Biden-era refrigerant regulations, and propose saving truckers $12 billion by scrapping the controversial diesel exhaust fluid limit. Now, the pledge will ensure that energy companies pass regulatory cost savings directly down to consumers rather than pocketing them, and that ratepayers across the country will see the difference on their monthly utility bills. We're going to listen in here for just a few moments, just probably about 3 or 4 minutes. Let's take a listen in.
That kind of numbers in Nebraska. I think we're doing those numbers everywhere, and it's all based on common sense. You know, we're conservative, we're this, we're that, whatever you are. The most important thing is we're people of common sense. We want to have strong borders. We want to have good education. We want to have low taxes. We want to have a great military. We're people of common sense, and if you do that, you'll be very successful at politics. Governor of Idaho, Brad Little, thank you very much, Brad. Governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, thank you, Brian. Great honor. Entergy CEO, Drew Marsh. Drew, thank you very much, Drew. Thank you, Drew. Great job you're doing. Southern Company CEO Chris Womack. Chris, hi, there he is again. Chris, I didn't know that was your name. Just saw you. I said, that's a smart guy because you did that big job making people in Georgia rich, right? That's Meta President Dina Powell, who's been my friend. She was with me for 4 years in the White House. And I called up Mark. I said, you hired the right person. You got the right person. So great, Dina. We're proud of you. Columbia County Commission Chairman Doug Duncan. Doug, thank you, Doug. Congratulations. Job well done. And Sheldon Jones of Louisiana's Richland Parish School District. And thank you very much. Good job. You know him, don't you? Huh? Thank you. I heard you're doing fantastically well. And again, Lee Zeldin, who's been so outstanding. So, thank you. So I just want to leave you by saying that it's an honor to be here. I'm going over now to talk about various and sundry subjects. One is the Iran war, where, again, we're doing very well, very, very well. I would say better than anybody expected could be done. We've knocked out there.
Alrighty, the president speaking right now in Washington, D.C., just down the road from Pennsylvania Avenue. Now, after this event at the EPA, Trump is expected to return to the White House, where he's going to host the Los Angeles Dodgers. They're, of course, the 2025 World Series champions. This is going to happen in the Rose Garden this afternoon. Now, critics are quick to push back to the ratepayer protection pledge, arguing that rolling back environmental regulations while simultaneously promising lower utility bills is contradictory, and that the administration has yet to explain the specific mechanism, by which companies would be required or incentivized to pass savings to customers. Environmental groups also noted that the same deregulatory actions being touted as cost-saving measures could lead to long-term public health costs that far outweigh any short-term savings on utility bills. So, we expect the full details of all of this to be released later this evening. We might have an update coming up tomorrow on Brookland News Live, depending on how things are going in the news world, if we're moving quick or slow, just to put it that way. So we're monitoring that event at the White House. We're going to bring you updates from as we get them. Alrighty, the New York City mayor, this is a really crazy story. It's really interesting. So there were reports that were going around days ago. The New York City mayor, Zohran Mamdani, pledged, well, of course, he did this pledge repeatedly during his campaign that he was going to attempt to arrest Benjamin Netanyahu. Of course, we know that the International Court has released a warrant for his arrest, essentially, for war crimes, okay? So, recent days, we've heard that the New York City mayor has been exploring all of the avenues possible to arrest him. And, well, he announced yesterday that the city can't do it, and it'd have to be the federal government, that essentially they don't have the power to. The NYPD doesn't have the power to do it. Take a listen.
Netanyahu is a war criminal, the architect of a horrific genocide against the Palestinian people. He is responsible for the killing of more than 73,000 people. All as we, as Americans, pay for the bombs that do the killing. There is a reason the International Criminal Court issued a warrant for his arrest. As human beings, we have spent generations building a shared understanding that there are crimes so grave they offend all of humanity. Anyone, with their eyes, with their heart, with their conscience, should recognize the devastation he has wrought and understand that he belongs before a court of law. As I've said, I agree with the ICC that Benjamin Netanyahu should be arrested and tried for his crimes, as I do for anyone else charged by the ICC. My administration has reviewed every avenue available under applicable law to determine whether New York City could execute the International Criminal Court's arrest warrant if Benjamin Netanyahu came here. It is clear that we do not have the independent legal authority to enforce this warrant. The federal government, however, does, and I call on them to join the ICC and execute this warrant. And I want to be equally clear. Benjamin Netanyahu is not welcome in New York City, nor is any other war criminal at large.
So there you go, Mamdani saying that there's no way for the city to be able to do it, but calling on the federal government to do it. Of course, with President Trump claiming that he's friends, appearing to be friends with Benjamin Netanyahu, it's not something that we are likely going to see. But again, Mamdani saying that the city doesn't have the power and that it would have to be the federal government. All right, we're going to take a quick 2-minute break. We're going to come back at 1:56. We have a really good story. A Jonesboro man, he was dressed as Spider-Man, saving a man essentially, really, truly. Wheeling him across a busy street, a crosswalk right here in Northeast Arkansas, in Jonesboro. Plus, we'll have your forecast coming up here in just a few moments. When we come back, you are watching Brookland News Live. The coverage never stops, so stick with us. We're back here in just a moment.
In a world that never stops, Brookland News is always there, bringing you news from Brooklyn.
Now to some news right now in Brooklyn. An increase to your trash pickup could be coming soon.
The nation.
We're going to start first right now with the breaking news and the information that we know.
And the world.
In the meantime, though, we do want to get to the latest on the war in Iran.
Follow Jackson Mitchell and Brooklyn News.
Alrighty, right now in Brooklyn, your hometown, your weather. You're taking a live look there at School Street, looking down from that Arkansas Department of Transportation camera there. Not too bad actually outside at all. The humidity has finally calmed down. It's warm, that's for sure, but the humidity is less, so it doesn't feel like 10,000 degrees. It doesn't feel like you're going to pass out the second you walk outside. As we go into tonight, a low of 67 degrees, and that is not bad at all, for at least comparing it to the few prior days that we have seen. Cloudy skies continue all the way into Friday. High of 87, low of 74. Now we could see some evening rain on Saturday. That's why there's some rain chances, at least at this point in time, for the evening on Saturday. High of 92, low of 77. So the warm weather, it's going to continue. The humidity is going to remain lower than it has been, at least earlier this week. Still going to be hot, though. Okay, so we're going to track it. We're going to bring you updates on your forecast. I'll be here tomorrow again at 1 p.m. to bring you updates on your forecast and, of course, all of the big news of the day. Okay. Take a look at this, you guys. This is something so cool. This is a look from, well, Jonesboro's very own superhero. So the Jonesboro Police Department releasing this video showing a Jonesboro man dressed head to toe as Spider-Man caught on city cameras here, stopping to help a man in a wheelchair safely cross a busy intersection. And the video has since gone viral online, warming hearts across the country, warming my own here at Brookland News. Now, the moment was captured by one of the city's 54 flock cameras, showing the costumed Good Samaritan calmly stepping into the street, stopping traffic, and guiding the wheelchair-bound man safely to the other side, then heading on his way as if it were just another day in the neighborhood. Now, Jonesboro Police shared this clip online, which quickly racked up hundreds of thousands of views, and comments from people calling the mystery man a real-life hero. Now, as of this afternoon, the man's true identity really remains a mystery. But whoever he is, Jonesboro is glad he is on the job, but I sure am too. We are so thankful to have people just like that Spider-Man in this world. Alrighty, that is going to conclude this edition of Brookland News Live. I appreciate all of you for sticking with us, joining us this afternoon. I know it has been, we've got a lot going on. We got a big show planned for you. The president was speaking as well. We want to note, if we've got a big show planned for you, a lot of news to catch you up on, we will monitor what the president is saying, and if he says something that's extremely newsmaking, we will bring it to you live on the air. Okay, so I appreciate you guys for sticking with us through all of that. Thank you. Really. Have a great day. Stay safe. Just a reminder that we will be back here coming up tomorrow. We're going to be back here at an earlier edition of Brookland News Live at 1 p.m. So make sure to join us then. I know it says weekdays at 2 p.m. 1 p.m. is when we're going to be here tomorrow. So we'll have all of the news for you. Thank you for joining us. Have a great rest of your day and stay safe, you guys.